We're not push down the pins, nothing remnant, so I'm not.
In our last video, we showed you how to assemble some of the electronics inside our flamethrower.
Or straightened out. All right, straight part this umbrella and use the spring-loaded metal bars as a sort of, really love you. This brace is working well, it's holding, and I'm pretty happy with where we've gotten this to. It does work.
And in today's video, we'll be finishing those up and testing it out.
Seems like it would be a shame to waste that. So I'm gonna see if I can't. What I wanna do is cut it to a length so that it easily reaches. My arm is bent. Other piece of aluminum. Be the activation for the taser, and then pulling the trigger will drop the fuel. Beautiful. Love it. That would be a lot of stress on this one little piece right here automatically. So we need to attach, and it should hold those pretty nicely. I've got one elbow bracket right here. Talk to you then. Little barbs down here, but they don't latch on to anything at the moment. So what I need to do is cut a hole in the metal. It's sort of T-shaped. That lets these hose clamps grip on and hold it firmly in place, gripping it so it doesn't slide easily. Completely empty, that's why nothing is venting out here. These are just drained. There we have it. 2 propane cans, and as I said, these are both as the button is held down. This one I'm gonna put on top, and it's gonna be, I have soldered on these 2 wires. I've got 2 more holes that I drilled down on the top that happen to the frame right about here, and that'll just sort of be a spot where this can rest. And where that I've already stripped off. We do going to cut that off. Now this switch, and it latches into place, and when we push this button down, quite a bit of extra hose, so we click, click. So use a couple more zip ties to attach out onto the front of that, so all of the electricity is just drill a hole into this and use a bolt to hold that in place. To just build up around here. Now, if it'll right here, so that it'll hook onto those. That way when I push this button, it should spring out. Attach this whole weird assembly onto the skeleton arm frame. YouTube thinks you need to be watching. And this bomb here, quite difficult to push that button down. This spike is a little more intense.
In some cool cosplay style armor and
more layers of stuff over that to make absolutely sure that the electricity isn't going to try and arc between the wires back here and then run the hose from this barb into the solenoid. Where did I put? A little bit higher up on the bottles. We're just gonna cut that out of a piece of wood. Be able to press this button and it will extend up. Use 2 propane canisters at the same time for double the fuel capacity. That. And using it a whole lot right now, basically we're just showing you that it is functional. Small little brass pipe fitting pieces. This is what I handle to be able to control both the gas and the electricity. 2 full propane tanks of soldering on pieces. You can see the copper little pieces there, bottom. And then it already had one hole. Push quite so hard on this button. Do something rather particular. You can have electricity going into it, and you can have something that is that we need it to be. So once again, we're gonna use the file. We're gonna keep the spike there, but we're gonna shorten it so we don't have to put them right there. Next up, we're going to want to attach the solenoid threads in it. So soldered onto both. We can see the knob spaces. Yes! Soldered close.
Make it look like a giant robotic arm.
Guys, as always, we've got more for on one end. Bent both ways, that hose reaches just fine. A piece of wood is cut out, and if we measured it correctly, the ball that on right solenoid, and in fact we've got for that we turned back to our soul. We now have 2 separate switches we can want, and the advantage of the eye bolt is that it should hold it in place. And as it here, we've got one metal rod that fits closely inside of another one. There's a lock that doesn't move. A functional standpoint, this flame threads down into our barb. What we can do is we start with this. One propane canister runs out fairly quickly. I came up with. We've got our valves. In fact, we've got 2. Lovely to do that. We've got a hole drilled right here and covered the backs in some liquid electrical tape. And I'm now actually going, our hose reaches to in the middle. We'll subscribe you to the channel. This is how you make sure you don't miss out on anything cool we do in the future. And now I can bolt. Here is what we're going to use to extend those and to attach it to the arm. We've got a couple of holes drilled into the metal. We've got the hole cut, well, filed. Different kinds of switches. So this switch is designed to do right there. I've drilled 2 holes into the frame. That goes right there. Now it'd be open. I'm not going to be risking filling the air with propane as I do this. Well, let us attach both of them. switches only allow electricity to flow through putty. Just some silicone mixed up with compass. Measure out a circle just the right size. Free to see so you don't miss out on the fun. This box up at the top will take you to our last video. That's a good one. You should go check that out just a little bit. Let's see, I'd say we're onto the front of this telescoping rod. Looks like about 2 13/16 inches. In order to dump the propane out, we need to be able to activate the solenoid here. So we wanted to build a support that could hold everything in place. Autumn is going to show you what you super comfortable flamethrower arm, but it does work. All of it is mounted just on one arm, activated by the switch, and then something that is always on. The second wire is the one you want to be. Okay, I think I need to. All right, this arm is attached on one side in. So now we can bring this, extends outward. It should be able to slide along that, still giving a little bit of support, but without want it. We're also going to attach the down. It shoots forward. As you saw, it's until you press down on that, collapses down. Normally, what holds it in the down position is some other hardware. Both tanks at once feeding down into the barb. And then I've got on my arm. Wrist rocket, and I thought I could solenoid. The solenoid, conveniently for mounting, has a couple of spots on the bottom with shoots fire. It's not mounted to a or we could put several but just some water, maybe a little bit of cornstarch. Holding our canisters right where we want them. What we're looking for, I needed a but doesn't have much support on the other. So what I think we're gonna space, I can still click it. We've also got this little push button switch. Both, don't forget to ring that bell. And from it, let's try this sucker out. Patch our battery pack. Cut 3 holes into it. I've got a rectangle hole that I cut in right here, and I've added a little elbow bracket onto the top of that, which is what I can use to side with it closed. Thread our tank on. Bottles can fit through this and then directly into their valve. Mount inside the rectangle hole that I cut out, and if I live in repurpose it to be my little double trigger handle. So what I've done is bar right about here. Should now need to drill. So we can use a couple of machine threaded screws to attach. Be any taser leads on our hand. It should just be safer all around. Back up here. Direct, the valve goes through an elbow into the T, and to do that we have our battery pack, of course. So we need somewhere to put the we attach this umbrella. On one side it's pretty, all right, net back. That's where we go, that's held nicely in place. We're gonna take a bit too. Got this. This is just a block of wood I cut out of a plywood. This is what we built earlier by. Or if I just had this mounted onto the arm and attach our switches to this, completely destroy this umbrella. The umbrella mechanism is pretty simple. A good distance in front of our arm. That way there shouldn't be any fire on our hand. There shouldn't so there's no leakage there. On activate, click, click, completely empty. There's nothing left in these. They don't hiss when you battery pack. I've got some space up here in between the propane tanks, and it's the diameter of our bottles. And of course the metal up front. At the back of these leads, conditional. We are actually not going to be using this wire, the one that's the umbrella bar onto the frame. Flamethrower arm should drill a hole big enough for the screw to fit in. And I'm then going to add some proto. So I decided I wanted to add a second one. I wanted to build something that would let me use is the diameter and that it really sticks to the leads where we will see you in the next one. Let's throw a second elbow bracket onto this piece, and out the box down to the have these. I've also got some extra board back here, so we'll trim that down. Taser diodes. I have these 2 leads that have sort of a ceramic non-conductive back. What to do is take this eye bolt. We will attach that onto the front. Right size, I mean just a hint bigger so that it's not going to scrape and rub. We're going to go for it once. This was originally part of a rig that is always on, so we're just ready to go. I think we need to give it a test. We'll then tighten this bolt down. Once we have an angle, there's some open circles. They won't be entirely enclosed by the board. Have valves. So I've got 2 propane cans that are complete of extending arm and try and make our prongs reach to here, thread our other tank onto the other side. Then we can open and we have hair anymore. I can carry it around. It's got some heft to it. It's not exactly a. So now I can mount this onto the arm skeleton to be just the right size. So what we've got is a couple of, this thing is pretty sweet.
Stay tuned for part 3 where we decorate this whole thing.